My parents gave my apartment keys to my sister while I was photographing bears in Alaska. I came home to find she'd turned my home into her real estate staging warehouse. I don't even know where to start with this. I'm writing this from a hotel room because I literally cannot stay in my own apartment right now. My hands are still cracked from 6 weeks in sub-zero temperatures, and I'm running on maybe 4 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. But I need to get this out because I'm starting to think I'm the crazy one here. I'm 29M, and I work as a wildlife photographer. Before anyone asks, yes, it's a real job. I work on contract with conservation organizations, environmental nonprofits, and occasionally magazines. I document endangered species, habitat destruction, and wildlife behavior. My photos have been used in campaigns that have actually influenced policy. I've had work featured in National Geographic. This isn't a hobby. But to my parents, 55M, 53F, I just take pictures of animals. My sister, Claire, 27F, is a real estate agent. She's been doing it for about 4 years now. She makes good money, or at least she talks about making good money. She drives a leased Mercedes, wears expensive clothes, and never misses an opportunity to mention her latest sale. To my parents, she's the success story. She has a real career with real money. I've heard some version of, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my entire adult life. 6 weeks ago, I left for an assignment in Alaska. A conservation group hired me to document brown bear activity in a remote area they're trying to get protected status for. This was a significant contract, both in terms of money and in terms of impact. The photos from this expedition could help establish a new wildlife preserve. The work was brutal. I spent weeks in temperatures that dropped to -20. I lived out of a tent. I got frostbite on 2 fingers that's still healing. I watched a mother bear protect her cubs from a male, and I got shots that will probably be the best of my career. I came home yesterday. When I walked into my apartment, I thought I'd entered the wrong unit. My living room, which doubles as my workspace, was filled with furniture. Couches, end tables, decorative pillows, fake plants, framed generic art of the kind you see in hotel lobbies. And standing in the middle of it all was my sister. "Oh," she said, like I just interrupted her lunch. "You're back early." I wasn't back early. I was back exactly when I said I'd be back. I asked her what was happening. She explained, casually, like this was completely normal, that Mom and Dad had given her my spare keys. Since I was gone for so long, and my apartment was just sitting empty, they decided she could use it for her work. Apparently, Claire has been using my apartment to stage furniture for her real estate listings. She brings stuff in, photographs it, sometimes brings clients through to show them what the space could look like. My apartment. My home. I asked where my stuff was. She waved vaguely toward the hallway. "Most of it's in the storage unit downstairs." "Don't worry, I was careful." "The storage unit. In the basement of my building. The one that floods every spring." I went to check on my darkroom. For those who don't know, I still do a lot of work with film. It's part of what makes my wildlife photography distinctive. I have a darkroom set up in my second bedroom. It's not just equipment, it's years of work. Specialized enlargers, chemical baths, temperature-controlled storage for negatives, prints in various stages of development. Everything was gone. Claire had moved it all to storage, because she needed the space for overflow inventory. I stood there, in what used to be my darkroom, now filled with bathroom vanities and light fixtures, and I felt something crack inside me. I called my parents. My mother answered. Before I could even explain what happened, she cut me off. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic. Claire needed space to stage properties, and you weren't using the apartment. Empty apartments are wasteful." I told her this was my home. My permanent residence. The place where I live and work. "You just play with cameras in the woods," she said. "Claire is making real money. She's building a career. We're just trying to help her succeed since you clearly don't need the support." My father got on the phone. He told me I was being selfish. That family helps family. That Claire's work was actually contributing something, while I was off playing nature photographer. I hung up. Claire refused to leave last night. She said she has stuff she can't move on short notice, and that I was overreacting. She slept in my bedroom, while I spent the night on a hotel couch because even the floor of my living room is covered in staging furniture. I don't know what to do. My parents are siding completely with her. They think I should be grateful that someone put my apartment to good use while I was gone. I'm exhausted. I'm cold. My fingers still hurt. And I don't have a home to go back to. Is this as insane as it feels? Am I overreacting? Update 1. 2 weeks later. I need to update everyone because the situation has escalated beyond anything I imagined. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. The overwhelming consensus was that I needed to document everything and consult a lawyer immediately. I did both. I hired an attorney who specializes in tenant rights. She reviewed my situation and confirmed what many of you suspected. What my parents and sister did was illegal. They had no right to give away my keys, and Claire has no legal standing to occupy my apartment. My attorney sent a formal notice to Claire demanding she vacate within 7 days. Claire's response? She laughed. She told me, through text, which my lawyer was thrilled about, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing and that she'd leave when she was ready. She also informed me that she'd been showing my apartment to real estate clients as a model unit to demonstrate staging potential. Let me repeat that. My sister has been bringing strangers into my home and presenting it as a demonstration of her staging services. I found this out because I stopped by to check on things and found Claire in my living room with a young couple, gesturing at the furniture arrangements and talking about how proper staging can add 10% to your asking price. She introduced me as her landlord when I walked in. I asked her to leave. She told me I was embarrassing her in front of clients and that I needed to calm down and wait until after the showing. I did not calm down. The couple left quickly. Claire screamed at me for ruining a potential lead. My parents called within the hour to tell me I was sabotaging Claire's career and that I needed to support the family. But here's the worst part. The thing that made me physically sick. When I finally got access to the storage unit, I found that Claire hadn't just moved my darkroom equipment. She'd thrown away the stuff that looked like garbage. That stuff included 37 prints that were in various stages of completion. 15 of those prints were commissioned work. I had been hired by a wildlife conservation fund to produce a series of limited edition prints for a fundraising auction. The prints were of endangered species I'd photographed over the past 2 years. Each one was hand-processed, signed, and numbered. They'd already been sold to collectors. I just needed to complete the development process. The total value of those commissioned prints? Approximately $15,000. Claire threw them away because they were just animal pictures and looked like regular photos, and she didn't think they were worth keeping. She threw away $15,000 worth of my work because she didn't understand what it was. When I told her what she'd done, she said, and I quote, "Well, maybe if your work was actually valuable, it would be more obvious." I have never wanted to scream at another human being more than I did in that moment. My lawyer is now pursuing this as a property damage claim in addition to the unlawful occupation. Claire has been formally served with eviction papers. She's required to vacate within 30 days or face forcible removal. Her response to being served? She called our parents, who then called me to tell me I was tearing the family apart and choosing money over blood. I told them that Claire chose to throw away my livelihood because she didn't respect it. My mother's response, "It's not like it was a real job anyway." I've started documenting everything. Every text. Every voicemail. Every time Claire brings someone to tour my apartment. My lawyer says we have a strong case. But honestly, the legal stuff almost doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that my family looked at my life's work and saw garbage. They looked at my career and saw nothing. They looked at my home and saw empty space for Claire to fill. I'm staying with a friend now. My apartment is still full of staging furniture. Claire is still there. But not for long. Update 2. 6 weeks later. Things have moved quickly. Claire was formally evicted 3 weeks ago. She didn't leave voluntarily. She had to be escorted out by law enforcement. She'd apparently told our parents that I wouldn't really go through with it, and that I was just throwing a tantrum. The look on her face when the sheriff's deputies arrived to enforce the order was something I'll remember for a long time. She was given 2 hours to remove her property. Anything left behind would be considered abandoned. She left a lot behind. My attorney and I documented everything. The damage to my apartment. The cost of cleaning. The items that were destroyed or missing. The commercial use of residential property. That last point turned out to be significant. When I told my attorney about Claire using my apartment for client showings, she asked me to get as much documentation as possible. I managed to find several social media posts where Claire had tagged my apartment's location while showing it to clients. She'd even posted a video tour describing it as her mobile staging studio. My attorney forwarded this information to the state real estate board. It turns out that using a residential apartment for commercial staging purposes without proper permits and owner consent is a serious violation. Claire had been operating what amounted to an unlicensed commercial staging business out of my home. The real estate board opened an investigation. Claire's broker, the agency she works for, was notified. They were not happy. Using a family member's apartment without permission for commercial purposes exposed them to liability. They conducted their own internal review. Last week, Claire was dropped by her brokerage. 2 days ago, the real estate board issued a ruling. Claire's license has been temporarily suspended pending completion of an ethics course and a probationary period. She cannot practice real estate in our state for at least 6 months. The career my parents were so proud of? The real job with real money. It's in shambles. I wish I could say I felt satisfied. I don't. I feel tired. I feel sad. And mostly, I feel like I lost something that can't be recovered. My parents have not spoken to me since the eviction. The last message I received from my mother said that I had destroyed my sister's future, and that she hoped I was happy living alone forever. I'm not happy. But I'm not sorry either. The civil case for property damage is ongoing. My attorney is confident we'll prevail, but these things take time. The $15,000 in destroyed prints is just the documented loss. There's also equipment damage, cleaning costs, and the emotional distress of having my home violated. But here's what keeps me going. My work matters. While all of this was happening, the conservation organization I photographed bears for in Alaska contacted me. The photos I took, the ones I nearly lost my fingers for, have been instrumental in their campaign. The area I documented is now under formal review for protected status. If approved, it will become a wildlife preserve that protects over 10,000 acres of critical habitat. 10,000 acres. Because I just take pictures of animals. I printed out the article about the preserve proposal. I put it on my refrigerator. Every morning, I look at it and remember why I do this work. My family may never understand. But the bears will have a home. Update 3, 3 months later, the mediation. This is the update I never expected to write. As part of the civil case, the court ordered mediation. Both Claire and I were required to attend, along with our attorneys, to attempt to reach a settlement before going to trial. I dreaded it. I expected Claire to show up with the same dismissive attitude, the same entitled posture, the same fundamental inability to see me as a person rather than an obstacle. I expected her to minimize, deflect, and blame. I was wrong. Claire showed up to mediation looking different. Not physically, though she did look tired, worn in a way I'd never seen before. The difference was in how she carried herself. The confidence that had always bordered on arrogance was gone. She looked small. The mediator was good. Professional. She started by establishing ground rules. No interrupting, no personal attacks, focus on resolution. Then she did something I didn't expect. She made us talk. Really talk. Not about the apartment. Not about the legal issues. She asked us about our relationship. Our history. How we got here. I expected Claire to perform. To put on the charming, confident facade that had always worked on our parents. Instead, she started crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen her use before, the ones that came out when she wanted something and wasn't getting it. These were different. These came from somewhere deeper. She talked about growing up in our family. About how our parents had always measured success in dollars. About how she'd chosen real estate because it seemed like the fastest path to the approval they offered. About how she'd spent years building a career she didn't actually care about because at least it made numbers go up in a way our parents could see and praise. Then she looked at me and said something that knocked the wind out of me. I've always been jealous of you. I must have looked shocked, because she laughed, a sad, wet laugh. You have meaning, she said. Your work actually does something. You save animals. You protect places. You make a difference. I sell houses. I help rich people get richer. I stage empty rooms to trick people into paying more than they should. She wiped her eyes. Mom and Dad praised me for making money because they couldn't understand what you were doing. But I understood. I just pretended I didn't because it was easier than admitting that my little brother was doing something that mattered while I was doing something that didn't. The mediator let the silence sit for a moment. Then Claire said something else. When I threw away those prints, I told myself they were just pictures. But they weren't, were they? They were your actual work. Your real work. And I destroyed them because I couldn't stand looking at evidence that you were doing something meaningful while I was arranging throw pillows. She broke down again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to stay angry. Part of me had earned the right to stay angry. She had violated my home, destroyed my property, and treated my entire career like it was worthless. But another part of me recognized something in what she was saying. Something true. Our parents had pitted us against each other our entire lives. They'd created a hierarchy where money was the only measure of success, and anyone who pursued something else was less than. Claire had climbed that ladder, and I had rejected it. She'd gotten praise, and I'd gotten dismissal. But she'd also been trapped on that ladder, climbing something she didn't believe in, toward approval that would never be enough. I'm not saying that excuses what she did. It doesn't. She made choices. She could have said no to our parents. She could have respected my home. She could have asked me before moving in. But I understand better now why she made those choices. The mediation ended with an agreement. Claire would pay restitution for the destroyed prints and equipment. The amount would be determined by documentation of the commissioned work value. She would also pay for cleaning and repair costs. In exchange, I would drop the claim for additional damages and not pursue the matter further. We signed the agreement. But that wasn't the end. After the attorneys left, Claire asked if she could talk to me. Just us. We went to a coffee shop. Sat across from each other like strangers. She asked me about my work. Really asked. Not the polite, dismissive questions she'd asked before, but genuine curiosity. I told her about Alaska. About the bears. About what it felt like to spend weeks in freezing temperatures waiting for the perfect moment to capture something true. Then I showed her my phone. I had an email from the conservation organization. The protected status review had been approved. The area I photographed was officially becoming a wildlife preserve. 10,000 acres. Permanently protected. Because of the work I did. Claire looked at the photos I'd taken. The mother bear and her cubs. The landscape that would now be preserved forever. She cried. Really cried. Not manipulative tears, not self-pitying tears. Tears of genuine realization. While I was selling houses, she said quietly, you were saving this. I didn't have a response. There wasn't one needed. Update 4. 4 months later, final. It's been 4 months since the mediation. I want to close this chapter with where things stand now. Legally, everything is resolved. Claire paid the agreed restitution. The civil case is closed. Her real estate license suspension has ended, but she's decided not to return to the same brokerage. She's taking time to figure out what she actually wants to do with her career. My apartment is mine again. I've rebuilt my darkroom. The equipment Claire damaged has been replaced. I've resumed work on the print series that was destroyed. It's taken time, but I'm almost caught up on the commissions. The wildlife preserve is now officially established. 10,247 acres of protected habitat. The organization I worked with sent me a framed copy of the proclamation. It hangs in my living room, in the same spot where Claire once displayed a decorative lamp she was going to use for staging. Claire and I have a relationship now. A real one. We meet for coffee once a month. Sometimes lunch. We talk about things we never talked about before. She asks about my work, genuinely, not performatively. She started following conservation news. Last month, she donated to a wildlife fund I support. She's in therapy, working through the things our parents taught her about success and value. It's slow work, but she's doing it. She's also learning that success isn't just about money. That there are other measures of a life well lived. Measures that our parents never taught us about. Speaking of our parents, they still don't get it. When Claire told them about the mediation, about what she'd realized, about wanting to repair our relationship, they were dismissive. They told her she was being dramatic, and that I had manipulated her into feeling guilty. When she showed them the article about the wildlife preserve, the 10,000 acres protected because of my photography, my mother's response was, "That's nice, but how much did they pay you?" My father said, "Maybe now you can get a real job." I used to let that hurt me. I used to let their inability to see my work's value make me question whether it had any. I don't anymore. Some people can only measure worth in dollars. That's their limitation, not mine. My parents will probably never understand that saving 10,000 acres of wilderness matters more than any commission check. They'll probably never understand that work can have meaning beyond monetary compensation. And I'm okay with that now. I've stopped trying to explain myself to people who've already decided I'm not enough. I've stopped seeking validation from those who've made up their minds. I've stopped showing them awards, articles, and impacts in the hope that something will finally click. It won't click. And that's their loss. Claire and I talk about this sometimes. About how we were raised to compete. About how our parents created a hierarchy where only one kind of success mattered. About how we both suffered under that system in different ways. Her by climbing a ladder she didn't believe in, me by being dismissed for refusing to climb. We're building something different now. A relationship based on actually seeing each other. It's not perfect, and it's still new, but it's real. That's what I wanted to share in this final update. Not just the legal resolution, though that matters. Not just the professional outcomes, though those are meaningful too. What I wanted to share is that something unexpected came from this disaster. My sister and I, for the first time in our lives, are actually family. Final reflection. A lot of people asked me to share what I learned from this experience. I've been thinking about how to put it into words. Here's what I learned from losing my home to my own family. You can't make people value what you do. You can only value it yourself. For 3 years before this happened, I kept trying to explain my work to my parents. I kept trying to prove that wildlife photography matters. I showed them articles about conservation impacts. I showed them awards I'd won. I showed them letters from organizations thanking me for work that had influenced policy. Nothing worked. Because they didn't want to understand. They wanted me to be what they understood. The real lesson: stop seeking validation from people who've already decided you're not enough. My sister needed legal consequences before she could see me as a person, not a resource. That's sad, but it's real. Some people won't respect you until there are consequences for disrespecting you. That's not cynicism, that's observation. But here's what I wish I'd known earlier. Some people only respect what they can measure in money. And that's their limitation, not yours. I spent years feeling like the disappointing son because my salary was smaller than my sister's commission checks. I spent years internalizing the message that my work didn't matter because it didn't produce big numbers. But my photos literally helped save 10,000 acres of wilderness. That habitat will exist, protected, long after we're all gone. Bears will raise cubs there. Eagles will nest. Salmon will spawn. Ecosystems will continue their ancient rhythms because someone decided it was worth preserving. Which one actually matters more, my smaller paycheck or that preserved wilderness? I know my answer. My parents will never agree with it. But I've stopped needing them to. If you're in a family that dismisses what you do, whether it's art, or caregiving, or teaching, or any work that doesn't show up as big numbers in a bank account, hear this: the world needs what you do. The fact that your family can't see it doesn't make it less real. And sometimes, protecting your work means protecting it from family. That's not cruel. That's survival. One last thing. My sister and I have a real relationship now. Not because of the lawsuit, because of what came after. When someone actually faces consequences for how they treated you, sometimes they finally have to look at who you really are. Sometimes the consequence isn't the punishment, it's the wake-up call. Sometimes that's when real family begins. My parents still call sometimes. Still ask when I'm going to get a real job. Still praise Claire's income even though she's taking a break to figure out what she actually wants. Still don't understand why I'd choose freezing in Alaska over a desk job with benefits. I let them talk. I keep the calls short. I don't argue anymore. Because I know what I do matters. I have 10,247 acres of proof. And that's enough. TLDR, parents gave my apartment keys to my sister while I was on a photography assignment. She turned it into a staging warehouse and destroyed $15,000 of my commission prints because they were just animal pictures. Legal action resulted in eviction, license suspension, and loss of her job. Court mediation led to unexpected reconciliation when she admitted she was jealous that my work had meaning while hers felt hollow. We're rebuilding our relationship. Parents still don't get it. I helped establish a 10,000-acre wildlife preserve. I'm okay now.